Welcome back to our deep dive. Today, we're tackling mental health.
That's right.
We've got a stack of sources here. NHS, WHO, NIMH, SAMHS, Medline Plus, Mayo Clinic, Medical News Today. Quite the collection.
Yeah, real wealth of information. Our aim today, I think, is to sift through it all and pull out the really core ideas about mental health.
Exactly. Give you a clear picture without, drowning you in data.
So we want to get a handle on what mental health actually is, what kinds of conditions are common, the factors that play into it.
And crucially, when to maybe seek help, how to do that, and also what you can do self-care stuff.
Right. So let's just jump right in. What fundamentally are we talking about with mental health?
Well, first off, it's not just the absence of illness. That comes through really clearly.
Definitely not. It's much broader. Think emotional, psychological, and social well-being, all three.
The WHO definition is quite helpful here, I thought. It mentions coping with normal life stresses, realizing your abilities.
Learning well, working well, contributing to your community, it paints a picture of positive functioning, doesn't it?
It does, and it's not like a switch on or off. Our sources emphasize it's more of a continuum.
Yeah, it fluctuates. You can be doing really well at times and face more challenges at others. It's dynamic.
And we should probably mention how common these challenges are. It's not some rare thing.
Not at all. The stats are pretty striking. The Cleveland Clinic says around 1 in 5 U.S. adults and teens experience a mental health disorder each year.
1 in 5. Wow. And globally.
The WHO figures from 2019 showed nearly 1 billion people worldwide living with a mental disorder. 1 billion.
So yeah, definitely something that touches a huge number of lives.
Which makes it even more important to understand what actually, influences our mental health.
Right. And the sources are clear. It's complicated. No single cause.
It's a real mix, isn't it? The WHO talks about this interplay of individual, social, and structural factors all weaving together.
So on that individual level, what are we looking at?
Well, psychological things like our emotional skills, how we cope, and biological factors too. Genetics can play a part, substance use history, that sort of thing.
Yeah, okay. But then there's the bigger picture, the environment.
Exactly. And this seems crucial, social and structural factors. Things like poverty, exposure to violence, inequality.
Socioeconomic pressures, your job, how connected you feel socially, education level, even the quality of your housing. Medical News Today and WHO really stress these.
They do. They're not just background noise. They actively shape things. And what about early life?
Ah, yeah. Adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, trauma, abuse, maybe losing someone important, difficult family situations. Medical News Today highlights how these can cast a long shadow.
A really significant impact. And there's also the connection with physical health, right?
Oh, definitely. It's a two-way street. The NIMH, Medline Plus, they all point this out.
So chronic physical illness can affect your mental health.
And your mental state can affect your physical health. Plus, basic lifestyle stuff, diet, exercise, sleep, they're fundamental for both. Poor sleep, for example, we know that can really mess with your mood.
It really can. Okay, so given all these factors, it makes sense there's a range of different mental health disorders people might experience.
Yeah, the sources group them into a few main categories, like anxiety disorders.
Yes, that's a big one. Includes things like generalized anxiety disorder or GAD, that sort of persistent worry, panic disorder, phobias, OCD, PTSD. They all fall under this umbrella.
Characterized mainly by, excessive fear or worry.
Pretty much, yeah. Intense, often persistent feelings of fear, dread, nervousness.
Okay, then there are mood disorders.
Yep. Think major shifts in mood and energy. Depression is the most well-known, probably. Bipolar disorder with its ups and downs. Even seasonal affective disorder, SAD.
And the key there is a significant change in emotional state.
Exactly. Prolonged sadness or swings between highs and lows. And then there's schizophrenia disorders.
Right, which affect how someone perceives reality.
Yeah, often involves changes in thinking, perception, maybe behavior. Can include things like hallucinations or delusions. These are broad categories, of course.
But gives a sense of the landscape. So maybe the most practical question for many listening is, how do you know? How do you recognize when maybe it's time to seek some help?
That's vital. And there are definitely signs to look out for. The Mayo Clinic and Medline Plus mention noticeable shifts, maybe in personality, or big changes in eating or sleeping habits.
We're pulling back, like withdrawing from friends or activities you usually enjoy.
Exactly. That withdrawal can be a key sign. Also, just struggling with everyday life.
How so?
Like if you find you just can't cope with daily problems anymore, or things feel overwhelming, or your performance at work or school takes a nosedive, the Mayo Clinic points to that.
Okay. And emotionally? What are the red flags there?
Persistent feelings, like sadness, helplessness, hopelessness that just doesn't lift. Or maybe intense fear or nervousness that feels out of control, even extreme irritability or anger.
Stuff that feels bigger than usual and lasts.
Yeah, lasting feelings. NIMH and Mayo Clinic both highlight those.
And sometimes,
Yeah.
are there more unusual signs?
There can be things like holding very strong beliefs that don't line up with reality, maybe confused thinking, really severe mood swings.
Thoughts of suicide or harming others are obviously critical warning signs.
Absolutely. Or substance misuse becoming a problem, difficulty perceiving reality. Those are serious indicators mentioned across the sources.
And the NIMH adds a time frame perspective, doesn't it?
It does, suggesting that if symptoms are severe or distressing and hang around for, say, 2 weeks or more, that's a really solid reason to seek professional advice.
Okay, so if someone does recognize these signs, what's the next step? Where do you turn?
Well, a good starting point often is your primary care doctor. NIMH suggests this. They know your general health history.
Right. They can do an initial check, maybe rule out other physical causes, and point you in the right direction.
Exactly. They can often refer you to mental health specialists.
And there are different kinds of specialists, right?
Psychologists who focus a lot on therapy. Psychiatrists who are medical doctors and can prescribe medication if needed. Clinical social workers who provide therapy and also help connect you with other resources.
Lots of options. But what if someone needs help, like, right now, in a crisis?
That's where the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline comes in. It's highlighted by NIMH, SAMHS, Medical News Today. It's a critical resource, available 24/7 by call or text.
Good to know. And getting a proper diagnosis from one of these specialists is important too, I gather.
Yeah, very important. Cleveland Clinic and Mayo Clinic stress this. A specialist can really dig into the symptoms, understand the full picture, and make sure it's not something else mimicking the symptoms. An accurate diagnosis guides the right treatment.
Makes sense. Okay, so that's seeking help. But what about prevention, or just generally supporting your mental well-being day to day? Self-care.
Huge part of the picture. And there are lots of practical things. Exercise is the big one.
Even just a little bit.
Yep. NIMH and Medical News Today both say even moderate activity helps. Aiming for maybe 30 minutes most days. It releases endorphins, helps with stress.
Okay, and food. Diet.
Also key, healthy eating, staying hydrated. NIMH links this to better energy and focus, fuel for the brain, essentially.
And sleep. We mentioned it earlier.
Crucial. Prioritizing it. Trying to stick to a schedule, maybe cut down on screen time before bed. That blue light exposure isn't great for sleep.
What about relaxation techniques?
Definitely beneficial. NIMH suggests things like meditation, simple breathing exercises, pursuing hobbies you enjoy, spending time in nature, even just listening to music you love, whatever helps you unwind.
Managing stress too, right? Like setting realistic goals.
Yeah, breaking big tasks down, learning to say no sometimes, not overcommitting, managing your workload and expectations.
And the NIMH also mentions practicing gratitude.
It does. Taking a moment each day to think about what you're thankful for, it can actually help shift your focus towards the positive.
And challenging negative thoughts.
That's part of focusing on positivity too, yeah. Recognizing those negative patterns and actively trying to reframe them.
And finally, connection.
Hugely important. Staying connected with friends, family, having that emotional support and practical support too sometimes. NIMH emphasizes how vital those social ties are.
It really sounds like a holistic approach is needed.
Absolutely. Mind, body, social connections, environment. It's all linked. Oh, and we should probably quickly touch on myths.
Good point. There are quite a few misconceptions floating around.
Like the idea that mental illness is somehow a sign of personal weakness.
Right. Which is just not true. It's a health condition like any other.
Exactly. Or the harmful stereotype that people with mental health conditions are inherently violent or dangerous.
Yeah, research consistently shows that's not the case. They're actually more likely to be victims of violence than perpetrators. It's important to challenge those myths.
Definitely. Okay, so wrapping things up.
Yeah, let's summarize the key takeaways. Mental health is fundamental to overall health. Full stop.
It's influenced by a whole load of factors. Individual, social, biological.
And experiencing challenges is common. And help is available. Seeking it is a positive step.
And don't underestimate the power of self-care. Those daily habits, exercise, sleep, connection, they really do add up.
So we really encourage you to be mindful of your own well-being and maybe keep an eye out for those signs we talked about. In yourself or others, don't hesitate to reach out.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. As we've talked about how interconnected everything is, our inner world, our environment, our biology, our social lives,
Yeah.
how can really grasping that interconnectedness empower us? Empower us to take, I suppose, more informed, more holistic approaches, not just to our own mental health, but also to how we support the well-being of our communities.
That's definitely something to think about, how understanding the system helps us act within it more effectively.
Exactly. Food for thought.